You've decided you're ready to become a parent, and suddenly you're overwhelmed with people who feel they have the right to inform you on the correct way to conceive, give birth, what fears you should have, and the proper way to parent. How do you filter through the opinions? How do you know what's trustworthy information and what's a myth or just plain outdated? Welcome to the TheL.O.V.V.E podcast. Join your host Michelle Smith and her guests as they cut through the noise and fear by sharing valuable tips, tools, and proven methods that help you connect with your own inner wisdom as you navigate the sacred journey that is pregnancy, birth, and parenthood in a more relaxed and confident manner. This podcast does not constitute, nor is it intended, as medical advice.
Hello, birthies families. Welcome to this heartfelt space. I'm your host, Michelle Smith. With everything going on during this pandemic, I feel like with all the uncertainty and the differing opinions that change daily regarding what we know about COVID-19, what the recommendations are regarding how to navigate it. Is it time to open things back up? Should we still be quarantined and practice social isolating? It's really starting to wear on many of our relationships. Even the best of relationships, we may be short with one another. It may be triggering trauma from our childhood or other times in our lives. So I've wanted in these last few episodes to provide some tools for families to be able to navigate this extreme amount of stress that we're all under. And so in today's episode, I am extremely grateful to have back with me once again, Natasha Solovieff. You may remember my interview with Natasha from episode 14 back in November. Natasha has her Bachelor's of Science in Nursing and a Master's in Education. She has 25 plus years experience as a maternal child health clinical and public health nurse. She is the author of The Dance of Parenting, Finding Your Inner Choreographer, a book that invites you to energize and strengthen your parenting dance by using your parenting love skills. She also writes heartfelt and intriguing parents' blogs. The more I've had the opportunity to work with Natasha as we plan our postpartum project together, the more I'm finding the value in what she teaches and the system that she has coined, the L.O.V.V.E, which involves listening, oming or becoming centered, voicing, visioning, and exploring. Welcome, Natasha, to the TheL.O.V.V.E podcast. I am so grateful to have you here with me once again.
And I am grateful to be here with you, Michelle.
Thank you so much. I am just excited about our upcoming projects together to help mamas postpartum. And I really wanted to have a conversation today to find and explore the way in which families can begin to use your system that you call the L.O.V.V.E to navigate a lot of the tension and overwhelm that families may be feeling right now. It's just so easy to find yourself getting really short with one another as we're confined together in many ways during this COVID pandemic. And what I love about your L.O.V.V.E is it gives pause. It gives a moment to really explore what you're feeling in your body and a way to get out of all the chatter and the circular thoughts in your head that just seem to really go nowhere. And way is such a good term for it because it's a way to begin to unravel it and do that introspection so that we can respond versus react to the situation.
I like what you're focusing on, Michelle, because I think you're right on that we're having a range of experiences within this pandemic time. And where we need support is when we get into heightened feelings for whatever the reason is. And I like to think of when I'm in that kind of scrambled place in my head or tight place in my body, that I have a kind of a fallback system that starts to take me out of my tension. And that's what I've come to call the L.O.V.V.E. And I do love it because it is supportive and always takes me to, a place where I can be better in whatever my situation is and be more authentic, be more true to myself, and do that in a way that can be heard.
Yeah, and I feel like listening and being heard in so many ways is what everyone is looking for. They want to be listened to, they want to feel heard, they want to feel validated. But unfortunately, most of us could use some guidance in that, because a lot of people, we just aren't really taught the art of true listening. One thing that's coming out of this podcast as I'm talking to experts and exploring all of these subjects is we don't even know how to listen to ourselves. And listen is the beginning of your L.O.V.V.E. So can you break down the acronym for your L.O.V.V.E for everyone in case they didn't catch the other episode?
Absolutely. So, let's just imagine, probably you don't even have to imagine it because you're probably in it. As a parent being home right now, you might just be getting too much of a good thing. And so you have those times where you're just irritable, like you said, Michelle, or you're tense and you find yourself grouching at your kids a lot, snapping at your partners a lot, arguing with the world a lot, going out to the grocery store and finding something wrong with how everybody there is doing things. And that, to me, are just some of the times when it's like, that's like a heads up. It's a signal to step into listening, and which is the beginning of this L.O.V.V.E that we're talking about. So just to spell out the 4 or 5 letters of love. Love is about listening. The L is about listening. The O is about what I call oming, obviously meaning calming. The V is about voicing, and there's another V about visioning, and the E is about exploring. So just so listeners have an idea of the path we're going to take as we talk about how to get yourself out of that mad scramble that you're in and out of that irritability and kind of back into being able to manage, being able to just be with what is. Maybe even having some fun with what is.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And it's really, I think, about finding that place of calm and returning to a state of love as best we can.
Yeah, and I like what you said, Michelle, about how we're not taught how to do this. And that's part of why I came to the L.O.V.V.E is we talk about being loving, obviously, a lot as a parent. And there's many, many facets to it. So to me, it's other than just having that heart experience of love, because there's so many things that happen that kind of can get us away from that heart experience. So it's more about, okay, I'm away from that heart experience and that feeling of love and being in tune with my kids. And yes, parenting is the best. So once I've fallen out of that, how do I get back into it? So if we think about life now and you're at home with your children and a lot of things are going well, but you start to notice yourself being irritable. You start to notice yourself having little fantasies of that vacation on your own. You start to want to change your name away from mom or dad to something unrelated.
Yes, or you just want to be by yourself.
Yes, yeah. Those are your heads up to think of that word love. Think about listening, think about oming, think about voicing, visioning, and exploring. And what grabs you within that acronym? What of those letters? What do you think? Is it, oh, yeah, okay, I need to take a deep breath. I need to calm myself. I need to go for a run. I need to color some, whatever it is that calms you. And then maybe when you're in that calm place, you'll be able to start to listen. Or maybe you start with listening. You start saying, oh, wow, I'm really being sharp a lot with people when I interact with them. I'm really being judgmental of everybody. That's my heads up. I have to pay attention to something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go within yourself and you ask,
Mm-hmm.
what am I tense about? What am I grouching about? Where am I feeling tension in my body? And what is that telling me about what's going on with me? What's that telling me about my experience in my home right now? And from there, it's going, well, I don't know. I'm thinking of some of my own examples. It could tell me that I need some time to myself. It could tell me I'm tired of cooking meals. It could tell me I'm tired of the news. It could tell me, thinking of all the different things I've heard when I've listened to myself during this COVID-19 time. It could tell me that, God, I really miss going to a park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I miss my grandchildren.
Oh, yeah. So once you hear what's going on, or once I'm hearing what's going on, it takes me to whatever I need to do next. It takes me to where I either need to explore other options, where I need to say something out loud. That's that voicing part. Where I need to do something like we talked about before to calm myself before I can take care of any other aspect of this.
What I really appreciate about your L.O.V.V.E is that it is giving a framework to work through these feelings and to really create a sense of or deepen our communication with ourselves and with those that we love or those we work with. That there's so many places that you can apply this. So I'm feeling overwhelmed. I want to snap at someone. Okay, I need to listen to my body. It's trying to tell me something. What's the simplest step I can do? I can stop. I can take some breaths and take a pause. I can take 5 breaths and just pause for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I can begin to give voice to, okay, I really need 5 minutes right now so that I can finish this project. And then I'll be happy to help you with this, or I'm trying to think of a little one, or watch what you're playing in your game. I need 5 minutes instead of just stop it, right?
Yeah. Well.
And then, so for vision, I might not be at the place to step into that one, but I could give voice to what's going on in a little less stressful way to my child. And then explore what I need. And right now, that just might have been I need 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, though, the beauty of this is I can begin to go deeper in it and listen. What was my child needing? They needed my attention. Have I been working for 4 hours straight, not realizing it? And if your child is older, they don't need your attention quite as much as when they're little, but they still need it, and we can forget. And then, maybe I need to go for a walk. Maybe my child and I could take a walk.
Yeah.
Yesterday, my older daughter and I, we just went outside because we had a lot going on. And I'm going to go outside and I'm going to work on pulling that vine from the tree. Do you want to come stand outside with me? It's too hot. And I'm like, no, the breeze is blowing. I know it's Florida. It's not that hot right now, right? But so we just stood outside together. And then she would hand me things as I was pulling the vine down. And we had a moment to reconnect instead of letting things escalate.
Yeah. So if you had, just snapped and said, stop that, don't bother me right now, that would have disengaged you further.
Mm-hmm.
So by
Mm-hmm.
doing what you did and calming yourself, hearing yourself and calming yourself, you were able to come up with other options that actually wound up allowing you to finish what you wanted to finish and needed to finish, and then allowing you and her to engage with each other.
Right. And in that, we can give voice. We could talk about things that were going on as we were doing this activity that's more calming.
Yes. And I'll bet that fits your vision of your relationship with your daughter much more than the snapping at her does.
Right. Right. And then exploring together. I can explore with her as a 21-year-old a little different than I can with my 12-year-old.
Right.
Of how do we want to handle this or the other? And then we can spiral even deeper. It's just beautiful. It really is. Once we understand the concepts.
Yeah. I like how you took a relatively simple, maybe not simple, but everyday example. And it's heartening to me because what I wanted to give parents is a default way of moving out of our snappy moments.
Mm-hmm.
And those things that come up in parenting that are really heightened right now,
Mm-hmm.
that cause us to disengage with our children and to disengage with ourselves.
And our partner.
Yes, and our partners. Relationships are this dance, aren't they? Between
They are.
being engaged, being disengaged, and bringing ourselves back into engagement. And that's a skill. And that's what I want to provide parents is through this L.O.V.V.E is the skills to get back into that engagement that you so beautifully described between you and your daughter. And sometimes that's really easy, but there are times when it definitely isn't so easy. And that's where, for me, having a default system, if you will, like the L.O.V.V.E is just so helpful when I'm lost in my thoughts or lost in my tension or lost in my anger and so sure I'm absolutely right and everybody just must get it without me saying it. Like, why can't they see it? Then I have this kind of stop. Wait a minute. Let me check myself on this love system. And what part of it where do I need to engage with it? Therefore, engage with myself and others differently.
Yeah, because ultimately it does really always go back to self.
It seems to do that in relationships, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can look at, this person's doing this or they're doing that, and we can become frustrated and angry about it. But ultimately, we get to decide how we want to respond to it
Right.
and do that work. And sometimes we have to be the bigger person to come from that space of love instead of frustration or anger and just step back. How can I increase the communication and being able to listen and voice and own and explore and use our vision is huge because I feel like this pandemic is really creating a crucible where the places within us, within our relationships, that they need some fine tuning. Those places where maybe we need to peel that onion away and heal that deeper level of trauma or pain that we may have had. And I really feel like it's creating this opportunity that we can contract, often in fear. And sometimes that's an appropriate response when we're really overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, we might be feeling depressed even, and we're grieving our loss of our lives as we knew it. And so when we grieve, sometimes we do need to contract, but ultimately we want to expand.
Mm-hmm.
And when we expand, love is an expansive place.
Yeah, and I think you're bringing up an important thing here. I just kind of want to reinforce it a little bit. That the idea here, so when people talk about love or fear, it can sometimes wind up sounding judgy, although I know that's not where you're going with it, Michelle. So I just want to be clear that a big part of the L.O.V.V.E is identifying what your experience is, putting words to what your experience is, and accepting it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the opposite of being judgmental. It's like, okay, this is happening. And it's doing the same with what you're hearing coming from another person. It's that acceptance. So it's not to evaluate it or to judge it. It's to reflect and identify and accept and move on from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's very easy, I think, as a parent when you get, for instance, irritable with your children, and then afterwards you feel kind of guilty and you feel bad.
Yeah.
When if you stop and listen to yourself and you find out, wow, okay, so today I was dealing with 3 children and none of them wanted to eat the same thing for breakfast. And then they had to go do some schoolwork and they had every kind of way to squirm out of that in the book. And then I had my dad I needed to call and follow up on some things with him because he's older. And then this and that and the other thing. So when you start to listen, you think, oh my God, whew, I was taking on a lot. So it's hearing yourself and embracing that was my experience. I'm taking on a lot. Of course I'm overwhelmed. Of course I'm overwhelmed. I don't want to snap though, because that's not the relationship I want with my children. So what can I do to take care of myself? And I can't tell you what to do, but you can come to that by listening to yourself. And you described it beautifully before, Michelle, when you gave your example of wanting to finish something. And then, eventually you wound up out at the tree doing something with your daughter. And that was very engaging. Your solution will come to you as you accept what your experience is, as you hear it, as you listen to yourself, you relax around it, and you accept it. Then you know what you need to say. If you need to say anything to anybody else, maybe you just need to say it to yourself. And then you can explore other ways to be with whatever the need is.
Yeah, I love that.
And that how you travel that whole love path, the whole love way, as you will, if you will.
Yeah, it's almost like I said, like a spiral or a circle. It's not a linear, I have to start at L, but it does give you a place to pause in each place. And even in the listening, to think about, where am I needing to honor myself? Where do I need to honor my child and my partner and the situation? I feel like the more I'm really working with and exploring your L.O.V.V.E, it's providing reflection tools that we just aren't taught. We just tend to react. We
Yeah.
don't always understand that we can pause for a moment. And in the heat of the moment, we can't always pause, but it's nice to be able to have a way to do self-reflection that just doesn't get muddled or caught up in, like you said, feeling guilty or, oh, now I'm feeling bad because I needed to contract a little bit because I
Mm-hmm.
am grieving. I need some space, but it's an ebb and a flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wanting to get back more into that calm, centered place where we can find our discernment. Because in the heat of the emotions, and if we don't pause, you can't connect with what's true and listen to your gut, feel what's going on in your body.
You really can't when you're having a discussion with your partner and you don't agree with them and you just know they are wrong. And they just know you are wrong. So your tussle gets bigger. It doesn't take you into solutions. It doesn't take you into love. It doesn't even really necessarily take you into an expanded self, if more authentic self. You're just battling with each other. And you're right. In the heat of the moment, it might even feel a little good, but you get to listen to that afterwards. You get to stop and say, wow, it felt really good to say that. And then you get to explore, well, oh, if it felt really good to say that, then there's more to it. And you have to pay attention to it. And like you said, honor it. So the whole process of listening actually is an exploration.
Hmm.
It's kind of like a reflection. When you get into this kind of reflection, it's kind of like a diamond with a brilliant light shining on it, and it just reflects all over the place. And so the nature of reflection is to hear all the layers of thought, all the layers of feeling, and to get to a point where you're identifying the need and then figuring out how you're going to meet that need. And the process that will get you to that is the love way.
So I want to cite another example of how the Love Way could help navigate some strong emotions around a situation. And again, I just feel like COVID is understandably, this is uncertainty. This is unprecedented.
There's so many different ideas about what it is and what it isn't.
Yes, yes.
Using.
Yeah, the experts aren't sure and it keeps changing. So let's say we have a couple where mom isn't feeling quite as nervous about COVID and maybe wants to let the kids go for a walk outside. And dad is feeling very nervous about it and feels like, wants to clean everything in the house constantly. And maybe those two opposite coping mechanisms to COVID are really coming into conflict. Am I making sense? I'm just trying to think of an example off the top of my head.
Yes.
Because we have to come to a middle ground, and we need to be able to voice what is true for us. But how can we find that middle ground? How can the Love Way help with that?
That's a great example, because even when you hear it, you think, oh, that's impossible. One person's over here on spot A and the other person's on spot Z. Where's, like you said, the middle ground? Where's the coming together in that? It's just either or. And it's very easy in those situations, I think, to get explosive or to say nothing and just be judgy inside about whatever your partner is experiencing. So what I would suggest to people when they're in a predicament like that is that you can start with the Love Way, either listening to the other person or listening to yourself. That's a personal choice. But it's going to start with listening more fully, to listen for what's really important here. What's going on? What are out of all my jumbled thoughts about this, and what I want for my kids, and my partner's really annoying me, and what's in there is really important to you, and to come up with whatever words you would put to that in a descriptive kind of way. And then to find out that for your partner also. So I'm just using my imagination here. I'm thinking, what if it's just really important for you that your kids have some freedom in this time? And what if it's important to your partner that your kids are safe? So safety is important to one and freedom is important to another. Again, that seems a little maybe oppositional. However, keeping the vision of common ground in mind and enhancing engagement as opposed to disengaging, and creating more calm as opposed to creating agitation when everything is so agitated out there already. So keeping those larger parts of your relationship vision in mind. What do you need next to come closer to that vision? And that's where vision, the V in there, really serves this Love Way. I think it would be important for both partners to be paying attention to, what's happening in their body around this. Where do they need to calm down? Is it their head? Is their head going 100 miles an hour? Is it their body just really tightening up? And doing whatever needs to happen to calm. And that's each member of the partnership is responsible for calming themselves. Once getting to that calm place, because you've identified what the issue is, one wants safety, one wants freedom. And maybe as you get calmer, you can start to say, well, yeah, I want safety and freedom. You just have a different idea about how that can unfold. And then you return to your vision, because vision can guide a lot, that you want more engagement. So it becomes, okay, honey, I understand that you want us to be safe. And I understand this makes you nervous because A, B, C, D. And, I want our children to be safe also, but I want them to have some freedom. They need movement. Children need movement. They need movement to calm down, which helps our household be calm.
Yeah.
So how can we do this and do it safely? So you're starting to think about each of your perspectives and how to incorporate each of your needs, your need for safety, your need for freedom, for your children to have freedom. And then you can explore options. Now, you might be listening to this saying, oh, well, that really oversimplifies my situation because. So I'm going to say, if I was talking with you, we would just keep working this love way till we got to a point where there truly was engagement. Now, can you do this kind of thing while your children are waiting? Are we going for a walk or not? Probably not. Something as significant as a very contrasting point of view takes some time to get to a point where you can engage over it. It takes some time to get to peace with your own perspective, let alone the other person's perspective. It takes time to come up with new options. But I also know, in the name of your relationship and your life, your household, and the feel of your household, it's worth taking that time.
Mm-hmm.
Does that address what you were looking for, Michelle?
Yeah, it's a really wonderful way to start in this. And like I said, I think with the love way, it can just spiral deeper, but start at a broader base. And I love the way that you distilled it down to, it sounds like we have concerns about safety and then concerns about our children's freedom, creating some consistency from what they were used to, their emotional well-being, their mental well-being of being able to go for a walk and get outside, and finding that balance. Because if you don't look at it deeper, then it can turn into, oh my gosh, she's just exposing our children and she doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And she can think,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, he is such a clean freak and he's making me crazy. And our children aren't going to have an immune system left because he makes us sanitize all the time. And you can just blow up at each other
Mm-hmm.
when ultimately both just really want to keep the children's well-being
In mind.
first. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that sometimes as you move into the layers of listening, like you land in some pretty deep, significant things in your own world or in your partner's world. And by that, I mean, I can easily imagine in a scenario like this that, there's some kind of childhood experience that either one of these adults had that they're bumping into, that some childhood experience that they were uncomfortable with, and they're bumping into it right now. Could be that they were confined a lot as a child. So they have really, really strong feelings of, on behalf of their child, that they don't want to confine their children. It could be that one of them felt like their parents didn't protect them. And they want to be protecting their child. And they think, so all kinds of things can come up as you move through this. So it's a great kind of simple sounding, the love way sounds sort of simple. Things can come up. And when they do, the best thing to do is just to stand back, and I'm going to use your language, Michelle, honor them instead of fighting with them. Instead of negating your partner's experience or negating your own experience, honor them, hear them. Oh, yes, that's what's going on. Of course I feel this way. Or, oh, that's what's going on with you. Oh, so you want to be extra protective right now, and this is how it's coming out. That's just so important as we move into listening. And I think maybe this is one of the reasons it's not taught a lot, because as you listen to yourself or as you listen to another person, you can wind up hearing about things that are significant to you and not or significant to the other person and not to you. In relationship, it's job necessarily to argue about that significance. It's to hear the significance and say, okay, I get it. That matters to you.
Yeah, it's that validation.
Yes. And in this particular situation, it's not about evaluating whether their feeling is right or wrong. It's not evaluating your own feeling and saying, is this right or wrong? That's not going to get anybody anywhere.
Right.
But it's just saying, this is what it is. And then you kind of plunk it into the vision you have and how can we work it differently?
Right. Because often if people feel heard and validated, oh, I can understand how you feel that way.
Yeah.
And then they hear that. And if both partners can do that, and then if their children are old enough, step into there with them, how are you feeling in this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how can we all work together?
Right.
And ideally, to have a relationship where, in our own self reflection, that if we find ourselves being triggered, that our partner can lovingly say, okay, babe, I mean this in the most loving way, but it seems like you're over cleaning right now. Are you feeling okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling overwhelmed? To do it in a gentle way. But that takes work and it takes communication.
It does. Because you can be as opinionated as the next person and as judged as the next person and impatient as the person. So I like it when the word love comes up into my head because it reminds me, okay, maybe I need to do some reflection here. It reminds me of love and how different that is. Loving behavior would look real different than whatever I'm doing right now. And it reminds me that I probably have a reflection process to step into. And I can say without a doubt that it never disappoints. It just always moves us into expansion in the sense of better problem solving, more kind of resonance. It's two people who are dancing well together. It's just you're clicking.
Right. And as you're talking, I'm thinking if you have a really beautiful dance between partners, there's an element of trust there. There's an element of communication that's in place when people dance beautifully and skillfully together.
It is. There definitely is. And, think about trust. God, what a huge word, Michelle, right now. We are living in an untrustworthy time. All that uncertainty. We want to pick and choose who they're going to listen to. And that is being reflected in relationships because so many things that come up, whether you're in a pandemic time or not, in a relationship have to do with some kind of trust something inside of us. So I don't know. I might have gotten a little abstract there, but I think the trust issues coming up in relationships are also reflecting the trust issues in the larger environment right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Who do you trust? Who do you trust? And can I trust my own discernment?
Yeah.
And my own gut in this? Can I trust my partners? Because ideally, wouldn't it be beautifully, if we reflect back, this is what my gut's saying. What's your gut saying? Yeah. Oh, we're saying the same thing. We're just coming at it different ways. Yeah. I think the whole trust thing is a whole nother podcast, but
probably explore trust.
Yeah. So if you had one bit of wisdom that you'd like to leave the families with in this conversation, what would that be?
I think I would say expect to be having a lot of different reactions to life right now and expect some of them to be uneasy and to have a way of moving through them. To take the time, I guess I would say, take the time to move through particularly parts of it that you're uncomfortable with. And I also reflect on the ones that you're really comfortable with, because maybe there's something going on that you want to keep in your life, even down the pike when we move out of this.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're uncomfortable, stop and walk the love way. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And if people want to learn more about the L.O.V.V.E, they can find your book. So let's talk about your book, and then they can find you on your website, right?
Yeah. They can just go to omgparenting.com, and the book is The Dance of Parenting, and you'll see a tab on OMG Parenting about it.
And they can find it on Amazon, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. You can even download it on Kindle. That's what I did. It's really convenient.
This is
But
true.
it is such a wonderful, wonderful tool. And the more I've been given the opportunity to explore it with you, the more valuable I am really finding it. And I'm using it in reflection in my own life and wanting to share it with my children,
Oh, that's lovely.
because it really it's a way to unravel all of this. So I invite you all, families, to explore the L.O.V.V.E, and it can really increase your awareness of yourself, of your relationships with your partner, your beloved, your children, your parents. It's really an incredible tool.
You balanced in your dance of parenting.
Yeah, it is about balance and pivoting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And meeting each other's needs and learning to follow one another and even anticipate a little bit.
Yeah, and having fun.
Yeah, we got to invite in the fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
The fun part is
Parenting should be
important.
fun.
Yes. Yes. So thank you again so much, Natasha.
It's great. And it was great talking with you, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, families, for listening. There are tools out there for us. We just have to take the time. And sometimes with so much going on, it's difficult to take that time, but it really, really is worth it.
Mm.
So please know that you're in our thoughts and in our prayers, and much love to you all. Thank you again for listening. And if you're enjoying the show, please share it with a friend, because when you do, that helps get the show and the information out to more people.
For more great conversations like these, or to find out more information and access Michelle's library of amazing guests, go to birththeseservices.com/podcast. For more information on the Birththeses method, Michelle's classes, meditations, and other services, go to birththeseservices.com.